Hello, everyone. It's your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black, the one and only, here with another exciting video. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about how was my day on July 6th, 2020, and what are my plans for July 7th, 2020. If you guys want to discuss anything with me, feel free to hit me up on our Discord, link available in the description box below. So, I've noticed a weird trend in the Marvel Comics universe when it comes to resurrection and 3D printing bodies. So, Tony Stark died and then uploaded an AI copy of his mind into a genetically engineered clone of himself. Dr. Octopus was murdered and then used reverse engineered inheritor technology to immediately generate a clone of himself with all of his memories. The X-Men now have a convoluted system involving 5 special mutants who can combine their powers to resurrect any mutant that seems to have ever lived. The X-Men also faced off against 3D printed assassins who recently killed Professor X, but in my notes I accidentally said recently called Professor X. We're coming to kill you. But anyways, X-Men and Iron Man especially focus heavily on this idea of like 3D printed pod people resurrection. The X-Men approach it almost from like a cultish religious point of view. So whenever they resurrect someone, they have like this weird cult-like ceremony and they treat it as if it's like a biblical resurrection. And Iron Man approaches it from the philosophical point of view of what it means to be human and the difference between like a pod person and an AI. And then when Dr. Octopus did it, it was just a plot point for Spider-Geddon, so the story didn't really focus on the implications of it too heavily. Here's a picture. I know this looks like Batman, but this is actually Wolverine. This is a picture of a assassin that's in the process of being 3D printed, essentially within like an assassin factory. Let's see. I'm gonna make sure I'm recording. I always like to double check that. Okay, cool. I am recording. Because it would suck to talk for like minutes upon minutes upon minutes and then realize that you didn't really say anything. So next up, I'm gonna talk about in Marvel Comics, there is a magical realm called Otherworld, where apparently imaginative children from Earth can harness their imagination and become literally anything they can imagine. Jubilee's infant son, like Jubilee's baby, Jubilee being a young member of the X-Men who currently has a child, her son went to Otherworld and immediately transformed into a dragon. And I mean, she has like a baby, not like a toddler, like a baby, like a recently born baby. Goes in Otherworld, boom, it's a dragon. So that's insane, to be honest, because the implications of that is that Earth babies in Otherworld are essentially like shape-shifting gods who can make their imagination a reality. And it makes me curious at what age does that stop being the case? Because infants, you don't even really think of infants as being particularly imaginative or creative. Like, you wouldn't even think an infant would know what a dragon was. So if it's based on the idea of you're just like a really imaginative person, could adults do it if they happen to be imaginative? Or is it like a certain stage of like childhood where you become like less imaginative, where you're not imaginative enough to just transform into anything? I think it's a pretty cool idea. Let me show you guys a screenshot. So Jubilee sees her son become a dragon, and she says, "This is going to give me a panic attack." Her baby's name is Shogo, so she says, "You okay, Shogo?" And then she's talking to Shogo. Then Gambit says, "He's a baby. Fairies love babies, and all that magic and pure imagination in them." To which then Captain Britain says that Gambit seems to be right. So Captain Britain says that Shogo is perfectly okay. Otherworld does bend to the laws of fairy, however, and as a mortal child, he is extremely powerful here. He seems to take whatever form he chooses. So essentially, it's them confirming that it's like mortal children are extremely powerful, because Otherworld obeys the laws of the fairies. But I'm curious, is it because he is a child? Or is it because he has like a childlike mind? Like, is it specifically due to what age he is? Or is it just that he has like the capacity for such like a large imagination? Like, just that he is imaginative that allows him to have that power? Because that's like a distinct difference, and it's not really clarified. But it implies that Otherworld in the Marvel Universe is a very interesting place. Let's just say that. So next up, so Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor has never liked Superman because Superman is an immigrant from another world. And Lex Luthor believes that his people should work to protect their own world. And this kind of shows that Lex Luthor is racist. He's being racist toward, like, aliens. I know it's like weird sci-fi racism, but it's still racism. Lex Luthor is also an evil billionaire who's constantly taking advantage of the legal system and his many riches to essentially do whatever he wants. This shows how Lex Luthor embodies some of the flaws of capitalism and how capitalist like ideas can kind of overcome like the laws that we put in place. Like, just if you make enough money, you can kind of extort people and work your way around like the legal system. So he kind of illustrates like some of the flaws of like a money-driven society, and he's also racist. Lex Luthor also was recently made into a Martian human hybrid, which are an all-white race of beings who deem themselves to be the apex predators of the multiverse, which, oddly enough, mirrors the beliefs of white supremacist groups in the real world that rally behind the belief that those with Rh negative blood are human Martian hybrids who are superior to those who are non-white and lack Rh negative blood, which straight up just makes Lex Luthor a very on-the-nose symbol of white supremacist beliefs, which is really weird. I learned about the whole Rh negative white supremacist thing yesterday, and then the Lex Luthor thing kind of clicked, and I was like, wow, he represents a lot of real-world evils. It's really interesting, to be honest. Especially this. This is so on the nose it hurts. He, like, essentially just is one of these, like, Rh negative super hybrids that people in the real world think they are. Like, they gave him that in the comic, and he has that same, like, thought process about him, that he's somehow, like, superior to everyone else. It's really crazy, but it's interesting nonetheless to discuss. Next up, Alex Ross is one of my favorite artists, not just comic book artist. He did a wonderful job on a cover that he did for X-Men #3. His photorealistic style really brings superheroes to life, and I just want to share this cover with you guys. Look at the lighting. Look at how the fabric like folds and wrinkles on people. It's wonderful. Certain things look more real than others, I will definitely say. But the things that do look real really pop off. Big fan of Alex Ross. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. So one of the weirdest parts of Dawn of X, which is like a line of X-Men titles currently coming out, is that there are now suddenly cults of humans built around worshipping mutants. The weird part is that this is like a new thing. So we always hear about humans hating mutants in the Marvel Universe, but it's alarming that until now, I can't recall of there ever being mentions of multiple cults spanning the entire world that straight up worship mutants like they're gods. Like, it makes a lot more sense that humans would have varying interest in mutant kind, rather than humans just either being neutral or hating mutants, which is normally the case until now in the Marvel Universe. And a lot of times it's like very few humans are actually like in support of mutants. So it's like people normally just don't care or they hate them. It's like it should be all over the spectrum. Like, if you have people who are adamant about like hating mutants, then you should also have plenty of people that also are super adamant about like loving mutants and like worshiping mutants. Like, If we've had all these organizations for years in the Marvel Comics universe that are bent on the destruction of mutants, then you should also have similar organizations that exist that are like, yo, mutants are great. They're like the best thing since popcorn. So it's just really weird that that's like a new thing. Like, I'm sure they've introduced mutant-loving cults in the past, like within the Marvel Comics universe, but it's never been so prevalent that it's like a huge plot point, and where the X-Men will travel the world and run into members of like cults that love them and cults that hate them all within like the same place. But that's a thing that's happening in X-Men comics now, and I'm like, it kind of should have been happening like the whole time. It already doesn't really make sense that the X-Men are hated in general, simply because they exist in a world where like superheroes are commonplace and people with superpowers are commonplace, but only really mutants are heavily discriminated against. So it is just kind of stupid. But anyways, continuing on from there, I thought I had a screenshot of this that I took. That's why I scrolled up in my notes so I could look at that picture. I just didn't add the screenshot. But there's a screenshot from Dawn of X where Bishop and Jubilee are talking about this together. And Jubilee, no, it's not Jubilee, I'm sorry. Jubilee was in Excalibur. Jubilee is a member of Excalibur. It's an image of Kitty Pryde and Bishop talking about it together. Kitty Pryde is also known as Kate, and now she prefers to be called Kate over Kitty. Anyways, so Kate and Bishop are talking about it, and Kate's like, it's kind of weird that people are worshiping mutants. Again, reaffirming that this isn't the status quo of the Marvel Universe. And then Bishop says something along the lines of like, well, Professor Xavier recently reached into the minds of every human on Earth and made a big announcement about the fact that like, there's now a mutant nation known as Krakoa, and how mutants have come up with all these like life-saving pharmaceuticals to help the world, and blah, 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 blah. And that's what's led to the rise of all these mutant cults. But why is it that these mutant cults wouldn't exist already? Like, if you look back even at just ancient history, we used to have societies that would worship like demigods, like beings that they believe to be like half god, half human. So if that's the case, why is it that we would now have, like in the modern day, people who possess superpowers, who are not entirely human but still human, like mutants, and it wouldn't be of like a similar circumstance? It just seems so bizarre to me. But anyways, I apologize for not having that screenshot. That screenshot would have been cool to have examined together. So next up, Gambit has this really nice line in Excalibur that is incredibly romantic. So essentially, Gambit's significant other, Rogue, has fallen into a coma. And Gambit says something along the lines of, well, I mean, I'm just going to directly quote him. "Not for a lack of trying. Even when you can't listen, you're still the only one I want to talk to." And I was like, oh, that was smooth as a bitch. That's such a good-ass line. And it's a line that he said in earnest with no one else around. It's a line that he knows that only he'll hear. Smooth as butter. Fucking killing it, Gambit. Game on game on game. Game on game on game on game. Oh, also, this screenshot that I added but I didn't show earlier, it just explains the whole, like, oh, the human Martian hybrids and how they're like the apex predators of the universe, well, the multiverse in DC Comics. That's all this screenshot was about. You don't really need the screenshot, but it's here. If you guys want to pause the video and read it. Talks about it. Human Martian hybrids. Anyways, so the next thing I want to talk about is this crazy philosophical argument that I wrote up that has these two premises, which I believe to be true, but it also has these two conclusions that contradict each other. But both conclusions should be true based on the premises. So essentially, I've created this paradoxical argument, and I'm trying to solve this paradox. So maybe you guys can help me solve this paradox in the comment section below, or we can talk about this more in the Discord. But the premises are, number one, everything requires a source. So even a source requires a source, essentially saying that everything has to come from something. And then the second premise is that the universe exists. Therefore, the universe must require a source. If the universe is here, then the universe must have come from something. So then there are two conclusions that I've drawn from this. The first conclusion is that there can be no first source. No source could be declared to be the first source ever, because it too would need a source. Like the first source would need to come from something else. So it couldn't be the first source because it has a source. But then the source of the first source couldn't be the true first source because then it would have a source, so on and so forth, which would imply like a never-ending stream of sources with no concrete beginning, because you couldn't have a concrete beginning. But then this also leads to the second conclusion, that if there was no first source, then nothing would exist. Because if there isn't like a first source to then birth all other sources, then no sources would exist, which would mean that nothing would exist. But the universe exists, meaning that there must be a first source so that the universe can like come from something. Like the universe must have a source. And if the universe has a source, then that source has a source, and that source has a source, and that source has a source, etc., etc. There has to be a source that starts it all. Because if there isn't a first source, then none of the other sources would exist and nothing else would exist. And that's why this argument is like a paradox. Like there can't be a first source, but there must be a first source. So I would definitely enjoy getting your assistance on this and trying to like solve this paradoxical argument. My plans for tomorrow, I plan to work on the Fiverr gig that I didn't work on today. In my last video, I talked about it. There's a superhero story that I need to write, and I just didn't work on it. I've just been reading comics and having these like philosophical discussions. I'm going to enjoy my smoothie from Smoothie King, which I've already pre-ordered. I'm going to finish all my work objectives, because that's what I normally try to do on a daily basis. And of course, I'm going to do all my normal daily tasks. Other than that, I don't really have anything explicitly planned. I am going to try and make another video like this tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And I might make more videos about other stuff tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure to smash that like button, favorite, comment, subscribe, and ding, ding, ding. Ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we do these videos. If you would like to talk about any of the things that we've discussed in this video so far, or just let me know how you're doing today and what your plans for today are, definitely let me know in the comment section below, and we can discuss this further on the Discord. This is your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black, the one and only. Logging out. Peace. Chicka-da-ya.